Hey, everybody. All right, today's episode is going to be part of the annual podcast-thon, and it's going to be on behalf of the group ADHD Aware. I am a individual that's been diagnosed with ADHD, so this topic is very important to me, and I wanted to have the opportunity to really break down what this diagnosis is and how it impacts me and everybody else. I'll start with talking about what happened to me yesterday. So yesterday I missed my scheduled time for supervision. So even though I meet at the same time every week, I was having a conversation with my coworkers and completely forgot what I was supposed to be doing for a whole hour. This is a classic ADHD moment. If you've ever done the same thing or felt like your brain is running a million tabs while the rest of the world is on one, you're in the right place. Today we're covering the latest 2026 numbers, the biggest myths that still drive me crazy, exactly how ADHD shows up in adult life, especially for women getting diagnosed later, the brain science behind it all, including how the ADHD brain actually develops differently and why executive functioning is at the heart of everything. And then a ton of practical strategies that have genuinely changed how I operate. This quick disclaimer up front, I'm not a doctor. I am a therapist, but this is my personal experience mixed with some of the most current studies and data available. If anything here resonates and you're thinking about diagnosis or treatment, please talk to a qualified professional. It's not just being distracted or needing more discipline. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects how your brain handles executive tasks like focus, motivation, planning, and self-regulation. At its root, it's about differences in dopamine and norepinephrine signaling reward processing and how different brain networks talk to each other. And the numbers, they're bigger and more nuanced than most people realize. According to the latest CDC data, 2022 National Survey of Children's Health, with trends holding strong into 2025 and 2026, about 11.4% of U.S. kids aged 3 to 17, that's roughly 7.1 million children, have ever been diagnosed with ADHD. Around 10.5%, 6.5 million, have current ADHD. That's about a million kids since 2016. Globally, childhood prevalence is around 9 to 10%. For adults, the 2023 National Center for Health Statistics data, still the most recent comprehensive snapshot, shows 6.0% of U.S. adults, approximately 15.5 million people, have a current ADHD diagnosis. That's 1 in every 16 adults. And here's the part that still blows my mind. Roughly half of those adults only got diagnosed at age 18 or older. The surge in adult diagnoses, especially among women, has been huge since 2020. New prescriptions and evaluations skyrocketed post-pandemic, with women seeing some of the biggest increases because their symptoms were so often missed or mislabeled as anxiety or just being overwhelmed. Up to 60 to 80% of kids with ADHD carry significant symptoms into adulthood. This isn't something you magically outgrow. The presentation just changes. When I first read those adult numbers, it feels invalidating and overwhelming at the same time. Suddenly my entire life makes sense. The forgotten deadlines, the emotional roller coasters, the hyper-focus on random hobbies at 2 a.m. This is the part I really want to expand on today because the why behind ADHD changed everything for me. Let's talk about how the ADHD brain actually develops and why executive functioning is the core issue. ADHD is called a neurodevelopmental disorder for a reason. The differences start in early development and continue to unfold. Landmark research, including long-term imaging studies, shows that in kids with ADHD, the cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the brain responsible for higher thinking, matures on a delayed timeline. On average, it reaches peak thickness about 3 years later than in neurotypical brains. The biggest delays, right in the prefrontal cortex, the CEO region at the front of your brain that handles planning, decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation. This isn't a smaller brain or a broken brain. It's a differently wired and slower maturing one. Neuroimaging, fMRI, and structural MRI studies from the last few years consistently shows reduced volume in thinner cortex and prefrontal areas, weaker connections between the prefrontal cortex and other regions like the basal ganglia and reward centers. Hypoactivation or underfiring in the prefrontal cortex when doing boring or effortful tasks. Altered dopamine pathways. Your brain's reward system needs more stimulation or immediate feedback to get going. This delayed maturation explains so much. A 10-year-old with ADHD might have the executive skills of a typical 7-year-old. A 30-year-old adult with ADHD Their prefrontal cortex might still be catching up in certain ways, which is why life demands, jobs, relationships suddenly feel impossible even if you were fine as a kid. Now let's zoom in on executive functioning, because this is literally what ADHD disrupts the most. Executive functions are the mental skills that let us manage daily life. Think of them as the brain's air traffic control system. Researchers break them down into several key ones, and ADHD hits almost all of them. 1. Inhibitory control, or stopping yourself. This is why impulsivity happens, blurting things out, impulse buying, or interrupting. Your brain's brakes are slower to engage. 2. Working memory, holding information in while doing something else. Ever walked into a room and forgot why, or started a task and lost the mental list of steps? That's working memory struggling. Number 3, cognitive flexibility, or shifting gears, switching between tasks or adapting to changes. This is why just one more episode turns into a binge, or why transitions like ending work feel brutal. Number 4, planning and organization, breaking big goals into steps and keeping track. This is where did I put my keys, and how do I even start this project? 5, task initiation, actually starting something when there's no immediate reward. This one is brutal. Your brain's motivation system has a higher threshold. Number 6, emotional regulation, managing feelings so they don't hijack everything. This ties into rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Tiny feedback feels devastating. The beautiful and frustrating thing is that these aren't character flaws. They're the direct result of the delayed prefrontal development and dopamine differences. When your executive functions are running on a different schedule, everyday life feels like trying to run on Windows hardware designed for DOS. The good news, brains are plastic with the right supports. With the right supports, we can build scaffolding that compensates for those delays. Personally, learning this science lifted so much shame. I stopped thinking I'm crazy and started thinking my prefrontal cortex is just building its highways. I just need better road signs. Now let's talk about some common myths and misconceptions. Myth number 1, ADHD is just laziness or a lack of willpower. The reality is your brain's dopamine system literally needs more to get motivated. It's biology and not moral failing. Myth number 2, everyone has a little ADHD now. It's overdiagnosed. The increase is real, but mostly from better awareness, especially for women and adults who were missed for decades. Telehealth and social media helped millions finally see themselves. I'm an adult diagnosed with ADHD. All right, myth number 3, you outgrow it. Up to 60 to 80% of childhood cases persist. The hyperactivity quiets down. The internal chaos and executive struggles often ramp up with adult responsibilities. Myth number 4, medication is the only answer or it turns you into a zombie. Meds help many by supporting those dopamine pathways, but they're one tool. Therapy, coaching, lifestyle, and strategies work powerfully too, often in combination. Myth number 5, ADHD is a superpower. Some strengths exist, creativity, hyperfocus, out-of-the-box thinking, but framing it only as a superpower dismisses the real executive and emotional costs. It's a difference with both challenges and gifts. How ADHD shows up in real life. Now let's connect the brain science to daily life, especially for adults. Time blindness, which is what happened to me yesterday. Task paralysis, emotional dysregulation, rejection-sensitive dysphoria, hyperfocus that makes you forget to eat, all rooted in those executive function gaps and delayed prefrontal maturation. For women, it's often the inattentive presentation plus massive masking, overcompensating, people-pleasing, anxiety that hides ADHD. Hormones make it worse. Estrogen fluctuations during cycles or premenopause can tank dopamine even more. Comorbidities are super common. Anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, burnout. The executive load of adult life, work, parenting, relationships reveals what was always there. My own story, I thought I was just bad at adulting until the prefrontal delay explanation clicked. My working memory and task initiation were always lagging, and now I get it. So at 34, it's at roughly 66% of whatever age you are. So at 34, I'm like I don't know, I'm just doing rough math, 23, 24. That's where my prefrontal cortex is developed to, if this is accurate. And I believe that it is. Here's where we turn knowledge into action. These target the executive function deficits and the dopamine needs head on. Scaffolding or delayed prefrontal development. External systems replace internal ones. Phone alarms for every transition, visual planners, apps like Todoist or Focus at Wheel. body doubling, even virtual, lights up those reward circuits. Number 2, working memory hacks. Parking lot notes for every random thought. Voice memos instead of mental lists. The one-touch rule for mail, email. Number 3, task initiation and planning tools. The 2-minute rule or worst first draft mindset. Break everything into micro steps. Use the eat the frog, but make the frog tiny. I'm not familiar with that one. All right, number 4, dopamine and reward engineering. Pair boring tasks with podcasts, music. Gamify with apps like Habitica. Immediate small rewards after starting. Number 5, emotional regulation for rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Self-compassion scripts. This is my brain, not my worth. Journaling the evidence against the rejection story. Number 6, lifestyle that supports brain maturation. Consistent sleep. Huge for prefrontal recovery. Movement. Exercise boosts dopamine and executive function. Even 10-minute walks. Protein-focused meals. Strategic caffeine. 7, advanced options. CBT for ADHD, coaching, medication if it fits, mindfulness apps tailored for ADHD. Quick wins to try for this week. Set 3 transition alarms today. Use a brain dump notebook every morning. Pair one dreaded task with something fun. Practice one self-compassion phrase when shame hits. These aren't about fixing the brain. They're about meeting your brain where it is. Wrapping up, hope, community, and next steps. To wrap this long episode, ADHD is real. It's common. 15.5 million U.S. adults alone. It's rooted in how your brain developed and how executive functions operate, and it's highly manageable. Your brain isn't broken. It's just running a different operating system that needs the right updates and support. The delayed maturation and executive challenges explain the struggles, but they also explain the creativity, passion, and resilience so many of us have. If this hits home, share your biggest takeaway in the comments or reviews. I read every one. It might become a future episode topic. Resources I love, chadd.org, Attitude Magazine, that's ADD Etude Magazine, Jessica McCabe's How to ADHD YouTube channel, books like ADHD 2.0 and Driven to Distraction. All right, you've got this. Your beautifully wired brain is capable of amazing things when we give it the scaffolding it needs. Thanks for spending this extended time with me today. Take care of that incredible busy brain. God bless. Thank you for watching Average Joes.